Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. A halftime show should serve one of two objectives. The first objective is to entertain the fans of the game. This is done through segments of analysis, where you have people breaking down footage of what happened, talk about adjustments that can be made, and talk about the key plays and the key moments of the first half. And it seems like for the most part, halftime shows are designed this way across all sports, where you'll see highlights of games around the league and some talk about the game you've been watching this whole time. The second purpose, however, is somewhat rarer and riskier, because it can backfire in spectacular fashion if it fails and alienate the audience. And that objective is to draw in a non-game related audience. Try and bring the people who usually wouldn't be interested in watching and get them to tune in. The Super Bowl halftime show is an example of this. A ton of people who watch the game are not football fans at all, but they're here to watch Lady Gaga or Katy Perry or Kendrick Lamar. Monday Night Football did this to insane success in 2015, when during halftime of a Giants-Eagles game, they premiered the trailer to Star Wars Episode 7. The ratings were through the roof because of that. So you've got one of two options with your halftime show. Keep the fans you've got hooked and tuned in, or try to bring in a completely different audience. Which is why it's baffling when in 2006, ESPN, for one of their Monday Night Football broadcasts, decided to go with a third option that I did not talk about. And that is to entertain literally no one. Because at halftime of a 2006 Monday Night Football game between the New England Patriots and the Minnesota Vikings, ESPN had an idea so genuinely dumb and so bafflingly stupid that more than a decade and a half later, I still don't know why anyone greenlit this idea. The show was panned by everyone. A chorus of boos rained down on the field while it was happening, and the show was such a disaster that it was never attempted again. This is the story behind the stupidest halftime show in the history of Monday Night Football. Before I talk about the actual incident in question, we need some context to understand two key events that were taking place around this time that might help to shine some light on why ESPN thought this halftime show was a good idea. It's October 30th, 2006, and the New England Patriots are taking on the Minnesota Vikings at the Metrodome in an absolutely critical midseason matchup. For the Patriots, they enter this game with a 5-1 record, and are looking like one of the best teams in football yet again. A win here could blow the AFC East wide open, as the only other competitor for the division is the New York Jets at 4-4. Win this game, and not only do you have a game lead on a first-round bye, but you go 2.5 games up on the Jets, which is quite the sizable lead heading into November. As for the Vikings, even though they're doing well with a 4-2 record and a dominant defense that has allowed the second fewest points in the NFC, they need to win this game if they want any shot at keeping pace in the NFC North, since the Chicago Bears are 7-0. Win this game, and you're 2 back of the division lead and have a game lead on one of the 2 wildcard spots. Lose this game, however, and not only is the division race all but over barring a shocking collapse by Chicago, but you're stuck with a slew of teams at 4-3 and 4-4, like the Cowboys, Eagles, Panthers, and Rams for the final wildcard spot. But we're not here to talk about what happened on the field. We're here to talk about what happened off of it. Because there are 2 things to note about this game. Number 1 is the date, October 30th. This meant that the very next day was October 31st, otherwise known as Halloween. Now, Monday Night Football had tried to incorporate the holiday into their broadcasts before when applicable. In 1988, to lead off a game on Halloween between the Indianapolis Colts and Denver Broncos, the 3-man announcing booth of Al Michaels, Frank Gifford, and Dan Dierdorf opened the broadcast wearing masks and talking in front of pumpkins. In 1994, to lead off a game on Halloween between the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers, that same 3-man booth had pumpkins carved with their faces in them, and there was Halloween decor on various objects in the studio. The whole intro to the game was Halloween themed as well. And 1 year later, in 1995, to lead off a game on October 30th between the Chicago Bears and Minnesota Vikings, once again, the whole intro to the game was Halloween themed. There seems to be a goal, and a good goal, to incorporate the holiday if and when possible into the broadcast. And number 2 is the network broadcasting the game. Remember that in 2006, Monday Night Football was no longer on ABC, as after 36 years on network television, the game moved over to ESPN. It was a bit of an adjustment to say the least, because when the game moves to a new network, it means new everything. New announcers, new graphics packages, a new studio crew to some extent, and new visions from executives in charge. While the move was an exciting one for ESPN, as getting Monday Night Football was by far the biggest thing that the network ever got the rights to, the ratings declined from what they were in 2005 on ABC. Now, some of that is to be expected, as ratings are generally worse on cable than network television just because of accessibility. But after drawing over 16 million viewers in 2005, Monday Night Football was averaging around 12 million viewers in 2006. Maybe the idea in ESPN's mind is that if we make the general public familiar with and acquainted with the crew, then they'll be more likely to tune in. And with that, ESPN had an idea to combine the idea of getting people familiar with the crew with the festivities of Halloween. They were going to premiere said idea at halftime of this Patriots Vikings game. And at halftime, when the Patriots were up 17-0 and the two teams went into the locker room, ESPN debuted this brilliant plan of theirs. Prepare yourselves for one of the stupidest things you're ever going to see.
Well, coming up at halftime, in honor of Halloween, lucky people have been pulled from the stands. They will be in the ESPN Halloween Derby. That's Kornheiser, me, Theismann, Berman, Steve Young, Michael Irvin.
Yep, this is a real thing. They were going to have life-size animated mascot versions of the crew race against each other on the field. Now, the first thing you have to ask yourself with anything that you do in life, especially when it's putting on a halftime show in front of millions of people, is the obvious question. Who is this for? So often with productions like this, people forget the first step, and that was the case here, because if they remember that first step, then there's no way this would have been greenlit. It definitely doesn't appeal to the football fans. The football fans want to see, actual football. They want to see highlights of the first half, of which there were none because of this show. They want to see analysis of what happened on the field, and what the Vikings could do to come back, or what made the Patriots dominate the first half the way that they did. Of which there was none, because this show took over. So good job! You alienated your football audience because during this halftime show, there was a distinct lack of football. But maybe this halftime show wasn't trying to appeal to the football fan. Maybe it was trying to appeal to the non-football fan, much like the Super Bowl halftime show. Heck, Monday Night Football was known for this. They had interviews with celebrities at halftime, and they had musical performances at halftime. We saw Shania Twain do a music video in a 1998 Monday Night Football game. We saw Jay-Z debut a music video earlier in the 2006 season, and later on, we saw the infamous Genesis halftime show. I did a 30-minute breakdown of the Genesis halftime show and how much of a disaster it was, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. However, and I cannot believe I'm actually defending that debacle, I genuinely think it could have worked. The execution was horrible and lazy, and the promotion was atrocious, but the idea behind having a musical performance at halftime is not bad. Heck, even if you did a music video, provided it was a video for a brand new song, a la what Katy Perry did at halftime of the last college football championship, I could see it working to an extent. But the goal was clearly to bring in non-football fans. That show, as horribly executed as it was, and as badly as it failed in achieving its objective, served a purpose. There was some sort of vision there, however awful it was. Ask yourself this. Why the heck would any non-football fan be interested and tune in to an ESPN Derby? I really don't know who Steve Young is, but now that you're telling me an absurd-looking mascot version of him is going to run in a race, I'm in. I've never seen a second apart on the interruption, but I'll definitely be sure to tune in to watch a mascot version of Tony Kornheiser run down the field. You realize how stupid that is, right? If you're trying to attract non-football fans, you can't do that with football personalities. It's the same failed logic that derailed the Super Bowl 23 pregame show, where there was a horrible talent show between NFL players that drew horrible ratings, and in the case of Reggie White, set comedy back 100 years. You can learn more about that debacle by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Football fans were annoyed that they had to watch this, and non-football fans had no idea who any of the people performing were. Plus, it would be one thing if the concept was unique, because yes, we have never seen mascot races take place before. This was the first mascot race in the history of mankind. Except for, just about every single baseball game. The Milwaukee Brewers have the sausage race. The Washington Nationals have the president's race. Tons of baseball teams at the major league and minor league level have hot dog races. This is not a concept that is unique in any way whatsoever. It is a concept that has been done many times before and has no novelty attached to it. So if there's no uniqueness factor to it, there's no appeal to the football fans, and there's no appeal to the non-football fans, who is this even the slightest bit entertaining to? Who is this for? The only people that I could see being entertained by this are young kids. I'm talking kids under the age of 10 who look at these funny characters and are amused by them. There's just one small problem that, somehow, ESPN never took into account. There's one teeny tiny problem that we have to talk about. Because this halftime show is taking place on a Monday night at 10 o'clock Eastern. What are most kids doing at this time? They're sleeping! How many kids under the age of 10 are allowed to stay up past 10 o'clock on a school night, unless it's a very special occasion? And I'm almost positive that watching a race of a mascot version of Mike Tirico and Joe Theismann is not a special occasion. Kids have school the next day. Kids are in bed or getting ready for bed by this point. Literally the only group that this halftime show appealed to, the target audience, is unable to watch it. That's like airing the newest episode of Blue's Clues on Adult Swim. The only people who might have been even the slightest bit interested are people that can't access it. Make it make sense. I'm begging you. And it would be one thing if the race was, actually good. Maybe if there was some entertainment value, it would work. But the race was a disaster. Mike Tirico had to be reminded to keep his head on. Half the people were just walking. Steve Young won it in a runaway and then proceeded to lose his head. The whole thing was just a train wreck, and to make matters worse, the crowd was not feeling it one bit. Because throughout the whole thing, all you heard was a chorus of boos. Listen to the introductions of each person, and it's very obvious that the crowd wants to see literally anything else than this halftime show after their team was down 17-0 at the half and laid a complete egg.
Let's meet the contestants. The host of Monday Night Countdown, Chris Berman. Former Dallas Cowboys wide receiver, Michael Irvin. Former Denver Broncos linebacker, Tom Jackson. Monday Night Football commentator, Tony Kornheiser. Former Washington Redskins quarterback, Joe Theismann. The play-by-play voice of Monday Night Football, Mike Tirico. And the Hall of Fame quarterback from the San Francisco 49ers, Steve Young.
If this was done during the 2-hour pregame show as just a cute little thing, fine. No problem with that. But to advertise this event like crazy, that does not appeal to anyone whatsoever, and then put out this abomination at halftime on the field, just feels wrong. And the reviews for this were absolutely scathing. The Orlando Sentinel said that the best way to describe the expression of the people who watched it, including Steve Young, was mortified. The blog Kissing Susie Colbert said that the event was beyond inexplicable. And honestly, that's a pretty good way to describe it. And Mass Live said that the event was ridiculous, awkward, and tacky, with the writer giving 2 thumbs up to the Vikings fans who booed the event as it was happening for how bad it was. Everything about this show, from both a concept and an execution standpoint, was a disaster, and ESPN never tried to replicate this idea again, and for good reason. So what's the moral of the story here? It is totally fine to air non-football related things at halftime. I get it, and I am in complete agreement with it. Airing entertainment and pop culture things in order to draw higher ratings and draw a non-football audience to the game makes a ton of sense, and when it is done right, like with the premiere of movie trailers or with an actual live performance, it can work wonders. But if you're going to do it, make sure that it actually appeals to the audience that you're trying to target, because that's kind of important. No football fans want to see a mascot version of Tony Kornheiser race. No non-football fans who might not even know who Tony Kornheiser is want to see a mascot version of Tony Kornheiser race. And literally the only people who might be the slightest bit interested, and that's an insanely small percentage of people, are asleep and aren't able to watch this take place. This game was a complete disaster. The Patriots won 31-7, at no point was the game close, and Vikings quarterback Brad Johnson threw 3 interceptions and posted a passer rating of 38.1, which is worse than if he did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. But somehow, the performance of the Vikings on this day was not even the biggest disaster of the game. Because no matter how bad you play, anytime you have mascot versions of Tony Kornheiser, Mike Tirico, and Chris Berman racing against each other and competing, and I use the word compete in the loosest sense possible, that is always going to take the cake. Happy trails to this abomination of a halftime show. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at Jaguar Gator 9. To see college football videos, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.